Hi, I'm Sarah Trevelyan, owner and founder of Sarah Loves to Sew and the Beginner Sewing Boxes. Thank you so much for joining me on my YouTube channel. If you are one of my members, then this is where you'll find the instructions and the tutorial for your October project. So today I'm going to show you how to make the Christmas stocking. So when you subscribe at sarahlovestosew.com, you get everything you need to make this through your door. So it arrives in a box like this, may cause extreme happiness, and it will come with everything that you need for that project. And within there you get photo card instructions on how to make the project, but you also get this tutorial. So this is the lined Christmas stocking. So if you want to learn how to make it, please watch, please like, please subscribe, and I will let you know when any of my next videos are coming on then. So this is the stocking we're going to make, and you can choose that when you make it either to have the lining as the red or as the green. And we've appliqued this star on here, so you can do the same if you wish on the other stocking, or you can leave it plain, and likewise you can also choose the colour that you do the strapping. So you can do quite a little mix match with your kit. Okay, let's get started. There, so in your boxes you should have everything that you need to make your stocking. So we've got the thread. You want to wind this onto the bobbin as well, so that you've got thread on the bobbin and on the top. We'll just put our button aside for now, and then you've got the lining and the outer fabric. You've got the fusible interfacing and the pattern. So the first thing that you want to do is open out your pattern paper, and then you need to cut out the pattern. So this is the shape of the stocking. You need to cut 2 out of the fusible. So cut the shape out and then cut 2 of these, 2 of these, and 2 of these. And then you've got the stocking holder, the hanger, which is this bit here. So this strip you can cut out of some of the fabric left over from either of those two, depending which way you're going to have your stocking. So if you want your stocking this way round, then I've chosen to put it to match the cuff, but obviously it's up to you. You can do either, or if you'd rather, you can make the stocking so that, because it's fully lined, it's reversible. So if you want, you can choose to use the red sort of tartan fabric as the lining and the top of the cuff. So you've got a choice. You can make it that way round, and then you might want to change the colour of the hanger. So decide which way you want your stocking to be. The little Christmas green trinkets on the outside, or the red plaid. So for this one that I'm going to make, I'm actually going to make one with the green as the lining. So this one is going to be that way round, and I'm going to do the other one the opposite, so that my children can tell whose stocking is whose. So cut your template out, and then cut out 2 from each fabric. The easiest way to cut out 2 of the same is to fold your fabric in half. That way you'll get the shape of the stocking. You'll get one for the left side and one for the right side. So if you fold the fabric in half, it doesn't matter if it's wrong sides together or right sides together. It just means that you'll get 2 shapes. So you'll get one with the stocking this way with a toe here, and obviously the other side, so it'll be right. So do that with both fabrics. Fold it in half, place your stocking just so that you can get the full stocking on there, and then cut it out. So when I'm cutting out, I find that I'm obviously cutting on the fold. I've put pattern weights down, and I like using the rotary cutter. So you just keep the blade always going away from you, pressing down, just go nice and steady, and just cut around the stocking. If you wish, you can pin the paper template to the fabrics, the folded fabric, and cut it with your fabric scissors. But just make sure that they are nice sharp fabric scissors and not blunt scissors that have been used for paper as well. So once you cut out this, you want to do the same with the red fabric. So again, cutting on the fold just to make sure that you get the stockings going the right way, because you don't want to end up with two facing the same way, because otherwise it won't work when it's all put together. So just trim, minding not to cut fingers. Trim around your template. Of course, you can use these patterns again once you've cut this. If you want to make any more stockings, use the same pattern. Okay, now we're going to keep some of this for the strip. Oh, actually no, I'm going to use the red one, I think. Should I use red? I might use the green. Might do this one slightly differently. So you choose which fabric you want the handle to be made out of. Okay, so this fabric, it's got the seam allowance on it, which is a centimetre. So as you can see, you now have your two pieces going the right way. So do the same with the red and cut out the interfacing as well. So I've cut out the two in the red as well, and now I'm just going to cut the handle. So you could fold this in half and cut it on a fold as well, so that you get the nice long strip. So I'm going to do it, I'm going to have my stocking, this stocking I'm going to have green as the main body with a red cuff, and then I'm actually going to go green for the handle this time. So you will have a choice of what colour you want to do yours. And if you cut this on the fold, then you will have a full length strip. So we'll do the strip first, the handle. So what you want to do is fold it in half, and press down with your nails. Just do a finger press or a thumb press here, and then we will fold it again. If you have an iron handy next to you, then you could iron this and it would be slightly crisper, or this cotton does tend to stay, this fabric tends to stay in place. If you don't have any nails, then you will need just to press it. And what we're doing now is folding the edges to meet in the centre, if you can see that, and this just creates a nice strong little handle for the stocking. Like so, and then Once those are folded in the middle, fold them over again, and that just encompasses all the raw edges. And then if you pin that together, this will be our first bit of sewing. We'll just sew the handle. So thread your machine up with the green thread that's included, and sew a line of stitches, about 2.5 stitch size, and just sew it along those two edges. So quite close to the edge, just nice and neat all the way along on the sewing machine. So when you start sewing, just start from about a centimetre in and reverse back to the end and come back, and that just stops the fabric getting sort of pushed down into the feed dogs when you first start it. And you're just sewing a nice line, taking the pins out as we go. Very careful not to sew over pins, it's going to result in a broken needle. And you don't need to finish the end off, you can just, don't need to reverse stitch at the end there. Okay, so there we have your nice stocking hanger. So just put that to the side for now. So the next thing that you want to do is get out the star template from your box and cut out one of the contrasting fabrics. So if you're using the green as the outside, cut out the red, and if you're using red, cut out the green. Also cut out a star from the interfacing, but just make sure that the interfacing cannot be seen. So you want to use the template and then trim around so that it's about 1/4 centimetre or so smaller than the star, so that when we iron it you won't be able to see any of the white interfacing. And what we're going to do now is iron that onto one of the green, or one of the fronts, one of the outer fabrics. So if you want your stocking with the toe pointing to the left, then use this one, and if you want it pointing the other way, obviously use the other stocking. But what we're going to do is first of all iron the fusible interfacing onto the star, and then we're going to pin the star on the stocking and applique it on with a zigzag stitch. So because this is quite a fiddly one, I'm just going to put down a piece of scrap fabric so that I don't get the glue on my ironing mat. And then you want to put your star face down with the right side down, wrong side up, and then put the bumpy side of the fusible. So we've ironed the interfacing onto both of the outer fabrics, we've ironed the interfacing onto the star. Now you want to place your star on the stocking outer that you want. So I'm doing it with the toe pointing this way. If you want the stocking to hang the other way, this is the front with a star on it. I'm just going to place the star. I'm not going to put it quite sort of up at the top because we turn the cuff down. So if you imagine, depending how thick you want your cuff, I'm just going to put my star just above the heel really, and with one point up at the top. Pin that in place, and then we are going to applique that on by zigzagging all along the outer edge, and that will just add it. If you want to personalise your stockings with maybe a letter instead of a star, then yeah, fill your boots, fill your stockings. If you are happy to cut letters out instead, just do the same thing, draw it out on a piece of paper first, cut it out, and then do the same with the interfacing just to give it that little extra bit of stiffness. Otherwise you can use the star template, and we're going to just zag that on now. We're going to now applique the star onto the front of the stocking. So the stitch that I'm using for this is, I've changed it to my zigzag stitch on the biggest zigzag that I have, but I've changed it to on my stitch length between the 1 and the 0. I've got this section here, and I've just got it under one on there, and this will give us a really close together zigzag stitch, so it will look quite nice and neat, and it will keep the star in place with hopefully no frayed edges. So you just want to take the needle over, just over the edge of the star. So if you position your needle in the right place and go for it. When you want to do the corners, you can just hand wheel it and turn it, and then you can lift the foot and create a nice sharp turn. So once you've appliqued your star on, we now need to start constructing the stocking. So get the other piece of outer fabric that we've ironed the interfacing on and put it together with the other one and pin those together, matching up the edges. And what we're going to do is sew these two together with a centimetre seam allowance, and then we're going to do exactly the same with the lining. So you want to just pin them all the way around together and then take it to the sewing machine and sew with a centimetre seam allowance, just in straight stitch. Remember to turn your machine back to straight stitch. We've sewn the outer of the stocking together now, and now we need to do the same with the lining. So put your fabrics right sides together and do exactly the same. Pin it all the way around and then sew either a centimetre to half an inch seam allowance all the way around. But this time, because it's the lining, we're going to be turning this around, so we don't want any seams showing inside. So leave a gap at the bottom of the foot where we can turn out the whole stocking. So really you need to leave a gap of about sort of 20 centimetres. So when you're leaving a gap at the bottom of the stocking, I always find it useful to start where you're going to at one side of the gap. So I'm going to start here, and because this is the lining, I'm going to sew the seam allowance slightly bigger than I did on the outer one, and this will just make sure that it fits in a little bit better. So just in straight stitch, I'm just going to give it a little bit of a wider seam allowance, not too much, just a couple of millimetres, and sew the stocking lining all the way around, but don't sew up the top and leave the gap at the bottom. Once you've sewn both of the inner and the outer together, next thing you want to do is clip the curves so that when we start to turn it, these bits of fabric will lie nice and flat. So you want to clip as close as you can to the stitches without cutting through, and you do that on all the curves, all the bends where you think that the fabric might start to pucker up once it's turned. So here is a good one, just so that when it's turned inside out it will lie a lot flatter and keep the shape that we're after. And the foot, the toe as well. So do that on both stockings, inner and outer. Next thing to do is to turn the stocking the right way round. So we're just going to turn this outer one first, and then you can start to push it into shape. If you need to, use something like a chopstick just to push into the toes. So this is now the outer stocking, and what we're going to do is we're going to fit it inside the lining. So that right sides are together. So just push that through. And doing it this way will mean that we actually sort of bag out the stocking, and then we don't get any unsightly seams showing, because we'll turn it round in the lining at the bottom there where that gap is. So just get the stocking in, and then what we want to be doing, what we need to look at is this top edge. So we want to line up the two inner and outer stockings, matching the seams, opening the seams and pinning. So that we spread the bulk of the fabric by opening the seams. So get them as lined up as you can. Do need to do a bit of sort of fabric manipulation here, just to get it all pinned into place, and pin all the way around, and then we will sew this opening. We'll sew the two, we won't sew the opening close, we'll sew the two layers together in a nice straight line, and that will be the top of our stocking, which then becomes sort of bottom of the cuff, like this. So this is what we'll have. We'll have this seam here, so it's the bottom of the cuff with no raw edges showing. So once you've pinned it, take it to the machine, and you're going to be sewing 1/2 inch in, and sew a line all the way around the edge so that we sew these two together. So I'm starting with a couple of those stitches, and I start on the seam, just keeping it lined up with your 1/2 inch measurement, nice straight line, and just keep moving the opening round as you sew, so that it's not pulling in any direction, and just go all the way around the top of the stocking. You've clipped all the edges, take the bottom of the stocking and start to pull the stocking through. So you pull that one the right way round, and then we need to pull the lining all the way round so that we're hiding all the seams, and we are going to sew up the bottom of the lining. Okay, so you can do this on a machine if you want to be absolutely perfect. You could do tiny little hand stitches, but because this is the lining and it's going to be sitting inside the stocking out of view, you can just fold your hem in, your seam in, pin it, and do a line of stitches very close to the edge, and then it's out of sight because this lining is obviously stuffed back in to the main stocking. So do that, take it to the machine and just sew up that hole. Okay, so that's all sewn up, and you can barely see it anyway, so it's quite nice and neat. And now we need to push the lining into the main stocking, and just push all the edges out so it has the shape, and then it's ready, almost ready for stuffing with toys. You just need to get the toe in there, and then we need to put this hanger and button on as well. So just the hanging hoop, so I can just feel lining up the lining in there with the stocking. So get it as nice and flat as you can. can now decide on how thick you want your cuff to be. So what we do here is just pull that outer edge, sort of roll it so that you've got there. So you can see lovely line stocking. Now you just need to fold down a pretty cuff. And this is how your stocking's looking. The hanger I'm going to have just here. So we do this with a little pretty button on the side as well. So what we can do,
we're gonna keep it low key, keep it softly spoken.
Tuck these up, just the raw edges up a little bit, making sure that they're like that, and then you can just sew a little stitch along there, and that will be on the back, and that will just get rid of those little loose ends. And then we're going to just cross it over and hand sew it on with a button in place. So let's just sew the ends of the hanger up and out of the way first. So for a little bit of practice of hand sewing, I'm just sewing the button on and the hoop on at the same time. I'm just going through the one layer of cuff and just making sure that we get that little cross handle in as well. And then we're almost done. Once you've finished sewing your button on, just tie it off at the back. And then you've finished. Well done. Ready for stuffing with presents.